Hello, listeners, and welcome to the chat that I'm about to have with Anthony Kearle, a great mate of mine. I'm Kelly Wilson, and even though I'd hung up my podcasting shoes a little while back, I couldn't resist the temptation of jumping back online and chatting to my mate about his brand new fantasy novel because it's been a while. How are you, Anthony?
Going well, very well, Kelly. Very, very well.
Well, there's nothing stopping you, my friend, is there?
That's it. Absolutely. Got to keep pumping along.
That's right. Well, for those out there listening, I haven't had the chance to chat with Anthony since August 2022. And we were chatting author to author. I'm also an indie author out there. And we were chatting about his very first debut novel that came out and went crazy, didn't it, Anthony? Blood of the Eagle. Now, I just have to pop this in here while I remember. Anthony is a pretty cool dude, but he's not one you want to do book events with. And I'll tell you why. Because he steals the show. The last book event I did with Anthony, I'm a young adult novelist, and a couple of my friends who do picture storybooks, we're all in the same tent, all loving it, all loving the crowds. Who do you think the crowd kept coming to see, though? They were just streaming in for Anthony. Do you know where I'm talking about, Anth?
At the Clunes Booktown.
Yes, yes. And we're
Absolutely.
like, come over here. But you really quickly have developed quite a following, yes?
Gone very well. I would
People
say
love that.
I've been able to get into the right bookshops and just push it enough, and
Yeah.
people seem to
Yeah,
be
but you've obviously
really
got the skill.
invested in fantasy, and especially
Yeah,
like a more
it is
grounded
big.
one. So it's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
been really cool to
And
see people take after and just meet like people returning just to even chat. Or I bumped into someone down the street randomly the
yeah,
other day who just recently picked up the first book and was keen to get stuck into the
fantastic.
second one. That was just a random encounter.
Yeah, love that. And that it means the most as an author, wouldn't you say?
Oh,
You know, that
absolutely.
you return readers or the readers that are following your journey. Now let's talk about your journey. So we first connected when we were talking about Blood of the Eagle, and I knew at that time it was a series. Um, can you quickly recap that a little bit and then take us through the series up to the book that you've launched last weekend?
Right. So this is the Blood of the Eagle was the first installment of a trilogy called
Yep.
An Echo of the Ashes. So it follows predominantly three core storylines,
Yep.
which is a sort of a murder mystery / revenge story following the Farron family, namely Astrid and her brother Eric, her younger brother, as
Yes.
they're trying to investigate the murder of their father and get revenge and justice for his untimely death. Then you've also got the story of Kyla Landry, who is a very hopeful young character. So he's the youngest of my mains. He's 18 at the start of Blood of the Eagle. He's very
Yes.
hopeful. He's got a deep connection with the gods that he follows, which is the twins. And he begins his journey by trying to join up with a group called the Order of Kilkara, and he wants to join them as a knight. And that's core story sort of follows almost like there's a training initiation and then a bit of like a Holy Grail-esque like quest sort of thing that it follows. And the final story is predominantly a civil war between the Salvari, the barbarian tribes of the north,
Now
Great
the title
Forest
of
of
this one
Selva,
is
Blood of the Eagle.
No, the new
That's
one.
a Shadow of the Nightingale.
That's right. Yeah. Just so
Absolutely.
people know where to look when they're going out and bulk buying your books.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, it directly follows the events of Blood of the Eagle. It kicks off at exactly the moment that the first book ends.
Okay. Yep. So last time I spoke, I remember I was blown away. And I did ask you the question, Anthony, do you ever sleep? Like, because this is just so full on. So clearly you're running on still quite little sleep. Is this
Yes,
correct?
yeah, absolutely. The coffee rates in Ballarat, I would say, have gone through the roof.
And you're clearly as motivated as ever. Why fantasy? Why have you chosen this genre?
I've just always like had a connection to it, I guess, because you can sort of go in there, do what you want to do, like
Yeah.
anything is
Yeah.
possible. Like you can create a different reality and just immerse
Yeah.
yourself in
Yeah.
something else, something different. And it's like pure freedom, to be completely honest with you, because
It
it's
is, isn't it?
just so different. Like you don't need to tie it to
Yeah,
anything or
yeah. And
whatever. Like,
it's escapism, isn't it? I mean, I was
mm,
interviewing some readers the other day, and asking almost exactly that. They're fantasy readers. Why? And they said because it's pure escapism from the world and the heaviness of the world, yet almost nearly possible. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
it creates this incredible imagery. Now, I need readers to hear, listeners to hear this again. You spend a long time creating worlds. Is this correct?
Yes. So before I even really started writing Blood of the Eagle, I was actually in my third year of university studying graphic design.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd completed my diploma. I was right at the end of my bachelor's, and for one of the projects there, I was creating this like fantasy map kind of thing.
Mm.
And anyway, I ended up writing like a 1,500 word small piece just out of nowhere. And then I started
As you
building.
do, just out
Yeah,
of
as you
nowhere.
do, as you do. It was a duel. It was a duel scene between one of the characters who ended up becoming a main character in An Echo of the Ashes. So I
Yeah.
wrote that, and then I created this map from there, and decided, you know what, I'm just going to keep building this thing.
Yeah, I love
And
it.
yeah, I spent about a year purely focused on world building, researching stuff from like cultures, religions,
See, that's
styles of
mind blowing.
combat, warfare, medicines, food, all kinds of bits and pieces,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
just built all these different cultures with like hundreds of years worth of independent histories behind them throughout this world. And then started writing, and I believe the first chapter I wrote was Astrid's introduction chapter, which I believe is chapter 7 of the first, either
Yeah, I
chapter 6
remember
or
you
7 of
saying
the
that.
first
That
book. Yeah.
also amazed me. And it's great for listeners or, fans or whatever out there to hear. There's no right or wrong way, is there? I mean, it's what works for you as a writer, as long as it comes together sequentially as the end for our fan base and our readers. So this world has continued into your latest novel.
Absolutely. So yeah, same
Yeah,
world. I've massively expanded. The world building expands. Bits
right.
that were very subtle in the first book become a lot more like paramount, I would say.
Yeah.
You
And that was in your
introduce.
mind from the start, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So
yeah.
new groups, new factions get introduced. Things you might have only heard about in the first book get introduced, and a lot of the background
Amazing.
politics from the first book,
Yeah,
which are mentioned here and there, just in small doses,
yeah,
blow up going into the second book. And
yeah,
so nothing will,
yeah,
it won't take you by surprise, the grand scheme, probably, but
yeah,
because
yeah,
there's those little trademark water bits. So okay, this is happening, this is happening.
yeah,
It
yeah,
might be a bit different because, word of mouth isn't always accurate. And
yeah,
obviously you've got
yeah.
different opinions on similar events. So it's yeah, book two, I would say, is a lot more political than the first one, as
Okay.
everything's
But I
just
mean,
about to
that's really
explode.
relatable, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like that. And, it'll expand your
Mm.
reading followers too. I mean, so you're doing a trilogy, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I'm assuming you're already writing your next.
I've finished the third one. I've finished the
Oh, of
prequel,
course
and
you
I'm
have.
I'm about a quarter way through the next book, the fifth one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm pretty far ahead.
All right, quickly, how do you stay so motivated then? How do you do that?
Good question. Lots of coffee,
Yep.
lots of
And it's
coffee,
your
lots of
passion,
coffee.
right?
Yeah, that's it. Like, I have a lot of fun with world building and like character creation and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I've like always got stuff bouncing around in the back of my head, which I'll note down whenever I get the chance, and then
Yeah.
whack it on
Yeah.
the Word document, ready to go.
So you've still got a day job, obviously, but I
Yeah,
mean, that must be a real time waster for you going to work. Sorry if your
pretty
work people
much,
are listening.
pretty much. But unfortunately, you
We
need to
got to do it.
pay for food and stuff.
Yes, yes,
So
right. I'm the same.
that's
Got to
it.
still live in society.
Unfortunately,
We can't live in
unfortunately,
our creative brains the whole time, right?
it would definitely be ideal to do so.
Yeah. Now, as you go along in your series, are you introducing new characters in each book, or how's that working for you?
Absolutely. So I think the
Okay.
most introduced new characters kind of coming into this one. One of
Ah,
and probably about a third of the book is set in one city, which was only mentioned in the first book, and that's called Ilara, which
perfect. I love
is
that. Yep.
set in the city-states of the League of Tracento, which were a colony of the Auraian Empire. It's
Mm-hmm.
extremely wealthy. It's a massive trade hub.
Yeah.
But there is a huge class divide. So you've got the nobility, who are like obviously the top of the top, the aristocracy. The
Yeah.
next level down are the merchants, which are extremely wealthy as well. So how the city is sort of laid out is the merchants and the aristocracy live on one side of the river. There's a river not quite down the middle of Alara, but on the other side you've got the lower districts. And the worst of the worst is known as the pits, just because of how like gross it is and it sounded well. And they have taken this name and used
Yeah.
it to build quite a
Oh, I
nasty
love this.
reputation.
Yeah.
And they've really just built around this thing that was started as a joke for the nobility, gone, hey, well, let's just make this our identity
Yeah.
and we'll
Yeah.
keep people out.
Yeah.
So
You know
that's
what? Again, relatable to the world. Really.
exactly. So it's so the pits is and the lower districts and whole are sort of run by the gangs, which are trying to like build the place up, but it's such a different area and so like poor compared to the other side of the river that
Yep.
even like soldiers and guards won't cross the bridges.
Okay. Wow.
They will
Okay.
just
Wow.
stay clear. Like there's a line in there which so one of the main characters, her name is Elise. She was born on the in the pits, and due to some like both of her parents died untimely, she ended up getting adopted by her uncle, who had lived on the other far side of the river. He was a merchant, a silk merchant. So she was born and raised on the poor and ended up in a lower nobility family, but she still got all the mannerisms and everything of the lower class. She was only been in the wealthy side for about 2 years.
Yeah. Wow.
And one of the lines that she thinks is even the air smells sweet. And then no one
Yeah.
wants to go
Wow.
across the river, especially not to the pits. And
Actually, I'm not a fantasy reader, but I actually love the sound of that.
mm,
Um, so tell me, when you're really in your head and you're writing, and this happens to me in my writing experience, do you cross over and sometimes get confused between our world and reality and what you're writing because you're so ingrained and engrossed in your characters and your world?
well, it's sort of like once I put myself in that world, it's like I'm living there. So
Yeah,
everything's like
that's what I mean. Yeah,
super different. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
yeah,
And yeah, because I try and think how that particular character would think.
exactly.
What
Yes.
you've got to if you want to make it real, right?
If you want to be authentic, you have no choice, right?
Absolutely. Like you can't
Now,
bring
what's
out
your fiance's name?
Anna. Anna, her name is.
Anna. So do you pull Anna into this? Like, is she in this world with you?
A little bit coming into the new ones because before we'd even met, I'd written the first three in the prequel. Like I just finished the prequel
Yeah.
as we
So
met,
she's a
so
late entry. Yeah.
she's a late entry. But she's definitely helped out with some aesthetics because I've had to do a lot of world building. So
Yeah.
what I'm working on
Fantastic.
now is a sequel
Yeah.
series.
Mm.
And she's helped with some of the world building elements going into that, just in
Oh,
regards to
perfect.
this,
Well,
because I've
that's
had to create two whole new cultures.
the perfect partnership, hey? And I
Absolutely.
have to ask, I know you love your fur baby, or is it babies now?
Babies, there's two
Oh,
monsters.
babies now. Are they on board? Are they part of your team, your editorial writing team?
Absolutely. This little
I thought as
schnoodle
much.
puppy, he comes and sits on me. He's sleeping next to
Oh,
me right now. He's very cute.
oh.
And the big cookie monster, the somewhere, yeah, she just floats
Yeah, I've
around.
seen him. He's gorgeous.
I reckon she does all the writing and I'm just there to supervise. It's sort of how
Yeah,
it
and they're
goes.
great listeners, right? When
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
read them a paragraph, I'm the same. I've got 3 cats and 2 dogs that hang out and with me in my writing studio, and they're just far more interested than my family, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's like I'm pretty lucky actually. So with who I talk to regarding how I'm
Yeah,
building my world, because I've got a really good
yeah,
friend
that's
from
fantastic.
school
Yeah,
who he doesn't mind spoilers at all. He lets me spoil anything,
perfect,
and
perfect.
he'll ask
Yeah,
questions about stuff. Okay, how could this happen? How could that happen? And that'll force me to really
keeps you
expand on
real. Yeah,
everything.
so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the number one thing for me is, yeah, I know it's fantasy, but I want it to be as realistic as possible.
Yeah, I like that.
I
Yeah,
don't
that's
want to be
fantastic.
anything random to happen or this and that.
Yeah,
It needs to
that's too
feel
far-fetched. Yeah,
authentic. Yeah, and
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Now, that was going to be a question. There's a lot of fantasy out there, and it is a really popular genre. Why, Anthony, is your series unique? What do you think it is about you as a writer that makes your series
So
different?
unique. Well, I think one element that mine's got is that it is very grounded.
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah, I
tried
like
to
that.
excessively overdose on any of
Yes.
the more hardcore magical elements. And the ones that are there, I've tried to make it feel like, okay, that could be real, that could happen, and this is what would happen if
Yeah.
it
Yeah, I
does.
like that. Yes.
So
Clever.
for example, if there was, say, another race or something like that, like whether like look at Lord of the Rings, for example, an elf, a dwarf, whatever,
Mm, mm.
how would they be looked at by a different group?
Yeah.
Like in
Smart.
for example, in the Lord Middle Earth, the Lord of the Rings lore, the elves just feel like they're better than everyone else. And that's generally been a common theme. And it's like, okay,
Mm,
they don't get along
mm,
really well with other
mm,
groups like the dwarves, for example. There's obviously a
mm.
big amnesty there. Um, and that to me is more real because it just
Yeah.
adds more depth to it.
Yeah.
Or like making groups like super overpowered, for example, or magic without cost. I
Yeah.
think if you're going to bring in
Yeah,
any
you're a
like
clever man.
big magical elements, there has to
Mm.
be a cost, or else it's pretty much okay. That
Yeah.
person's pretty much just a god
Yeah.
kind of thing, and
Very
that's what I
clever.
wanted to steer well clear of, is
Yeah.
anything like that that could just in one person could change everything if they just thought, okay, I'm just going to do this today. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't really
Ah,
like things like I think it's a bit of a cop out if you've just got a
yeah.
cheap way out of things like that. Because
Yeah.
my world, I really want it to be there is a lot of cost in there. Like you can
Mm.
only throw yourself into battle so many times before something bad happens to you. Like whether you get
Right.
injured, whether
Yeah.
you get crippled, whether you get
Yeah.
killed. Like
Yeah.
like one of the themes that I've got in my trilogy is that nothing lasts forever. And like whether that's a person or like people change. Like one thing I'm really excited about that I've introduced in book 2 is massive character development for one of my main characters,
Yeah.
which I had planned from the beginning. And that really starts to pop up in book 2. It's
Yeah.
huge, and
Yeah.
I'm super excited for people to start really reading that aspect, especially that particular storyline.
I love your energy. So would you say you're becoming a better writer with each book?
Absolutely. I think it's one of those things like the more you do something, the better you get at it. And
Correct.
especially
Obviously. Yeah.
if you're happy to take on board constructive criticism,
Oh, 100%.
like if you're happy to do that, like I've always been very
Yeah.
visual with how I write. Like if I can't visualize something, I
Mm.
just can't write it at all.
Yes. Yes,
So
I
I
hear
have to
you.
vividly picture it. And then
Yeah.
I have like a round of editors almost. I got my mum who will read it,
Yeah, I'm
who
the
will straight
same.
up tell me if something doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I've got the guy who convinced me to publish. His name's Wayne. He owns a very good bookshop.
Fantastic.
He
Yeah.
reads it second. I'll bounce a lot of ideas off my schoolhood friend.
Yeah.
Um,
It's great, isn't it? Yeah.
and then
And you
I'll get
can't be afraid of doing that. Like
no,
it's so important
exactly.
because it's a cutthroat industry,
Yeah,
and a saturated book industry. So to be the best of the best, you've got to have thick skin.
yeah,
I'm thick into my structural edit at the moment, and when I first saw the 14 pages of it come back, I went,
yeah, yeah.
but I'm determined to learn and be better, and have this novel as a better standard of writing because of it. So
Oh,
grateful,
it
right?
definitely helps. It definitely helps. And just taking on every bit of
Yeah,
advice. And then
for
I had a
sure.
really good first editor for Nightingale called Annabelle Hawes. Um,
Excellent. Yeah.
like her and a really good friend of mine called Geeta. They were like my first two editors, and there was a lot of constructive criticism put in those just regarding
Yeah.
even just little bits and pieces. I was
Mm.
like, okay, cool. And that's just really helped me develop.
Oh, I hear.
Particularly one of my storylines in the second book. I reckon I added about 10,000 words into one
Yeah.
storyline.
Wow. Wow.
Just to flesh out particular characters more. And I added in a few scenes and cut out a few small bits and pieces here and there. Just added,
Yeah.
particularly to
Yeah.
Elisa's storyline.
Yeah.
Because that's
So powerful.
probably the
Yeah.
heart of Nightingale is the Lauren storyline.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the one. Like, 'cause there's just so like there's a lot of small characters. So with the Alara storyline, there's Elise, who's the clash of both worlds, the aristocracy and the merchant class and the poor. She's sort of smack bang in the middle. You've got Cleander, who is a lieutenant among the gangs, he came in right at the end of the first book. He's one of the best swordsmen in the world. who he had a run-in with the Knights of Kilcara at the end of the first book. You'll have met him briefly in there. He went by 2 names. In the scenes not revolving around him, he was known as Walrith, which translates in their language to the shadow. And in his own POV right at the end, he was called Marcus by his friend, which is his real name.
Where do you get all these names from?
My head from
They're
Pinterest is a
super
good place
cool.
to go. Pinterest is a good place to go just to like bounce stuff around. But Cleander
Yeah.
is actually a historical figure from Rome, from ancient Rome. So Cleander, that's an alias of his. So he's this very dark, very tormented character, and we get to see how he went from, well, a knight of Kilcara to this extremely dark individual. And he's got this line, which I've promoted a few times, which is new growth cannot occur without first the destruction of the old.
Ooh,
And that's
I
sort of
like.
that's the summary of the games to a T. Like
Yeah, that's awesome.
he's not the leader by any means.
Yeah.
He's like a cutthroat, an assassin, a political figure. He's a lot of things, and
Yeah,
he's
wow.
built this persona of Cleander. It's not who he is. He is Marcus, but Marcus is dead. He killed Marcus years ago. He's become Cleander. He's become this very dark person to do what needs to be done.
There is a lot going on in that clever mind of yours, my friend.
He's a bit of fun.
Now,
He's a bit of fun.
well, I just am blown away, and I'm just so grateful to be able to chat with you. You've inspired me, and I'm sure you'll inspire both fans, readers, listeners, and potential writers. Australia's lucky to have you, Anthony. But before we let you go, I really wanted to do what I used to do a lot with authors, which is called a minute inside your mind.
Yep.
You and I have never done that before, but it's a great way for old fans, new fans to get to know you a little bit more as a person as well as an author. Are you game?
Absolutely. Count me in.
Rightio. Well, ready?
Yep.
Let's
Good
go.
to go.
What's your favourite room in the house?
My favorite room in the house?
Yep.
Oh, that would have to be the bedroom because that's where my computer is.
Okay, fair enough. What time of the day then are you most creative?
During the day. Definitely during midday, probably.
Okay. Would you call yourself an extrovert or an introvert?
Definitely introvert.
Yeah. If you could have 3 guests into your home, dead, live, doesn't matter, who would you have?
Caesar. Definitely Caesar. I would have probably Machiavelli, and also probably the UFC fighter Habib. I reckon that would be interesting to meet them all. I mean, that's a bit different. That's a bit different, but there you go.
It sure is. Favorite food?
Favorite food? Oh, that's actually tricky because I love each and all foods, but probably I'd have to go with tandoori chicken.
Yep. If you could be any superhero in the world, who would you be?
Any superhero? Oh, Green Arrow. Count me in.
Yeah, of course, of course, of course. Second last question. 3 words just off the top of your head that describe you.
Me. Oh,
You.
creative.
Mm-hmm.
Gamer, and does writer count?
It does.
There we
Cool
go.
Aussie writer. We'll put 3 right words in that. Lucky last. Why does every Australian, in fact, everyone out in the world right now, need to rush to you, Anthony, and buy some of your books?
Why do they need to read the Echo of the
I've hit you
Ashes?
hard today, haven't I?
Hit me hard. You hit me hard.
I can rephrase if you need to. How buying your books will it change their world?
It'll give them something to come home and read for 2 months, as they're quite large.
Yeah, wow. How many words are in your novels?
The first one is 205,000. The second one is about 215,000. And the third one is 235,000.
Yee. See, listeners,
Rather
I
large.
told you this guy does not sleep.
It happens like that sometimes.
Oh, Anthony, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait. I will be hassling you again for novel number 3.
Yep.
I'm going to make this an ongoing thing. It doesn't matter how old we get. We're going to keep doing these podcasts with your stories. You in?
Absolutely, Kelly. Count me in.
Awesome.
Perfect.
It's been great talking to you today.
And you too.
And I hope everyone out there loved it. Get on board, grab some of Anthony Kearle's series today. What amazing Christmas presents, right?
Absolutely. Can't go wrong with a bit of fantasy, huh?
Yeah, awesome. I'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Kelly.
See ya.
Bye-bye.